in match play, you're playing one person and you're not playing the entire field. And in real life, that one person is old man par. And if you can kind of have that mindset a little bit, because even when you start out and you start out good, just 18 holes it's an insurmountable task. But just having that mindset, easy to talk about, harder to do, but how are you going to do it? Go out with your buddies and just have a fun match play event one Saturday or one Friday. Just throw that in there every once in a while.
Hi, this is Sergio Lelevier from Sierra Madre, California, and I play at Altadena Golf Course. This is Golf Smarter number 919.
Use match play practice to enhance stroke play success with Joe Hallett.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Joe.
Fred, it's fun. I could never tell how much time transpires between when you and I talk to each other, because it's like we were just talking a few weeks ago, because we always seem to pick up where we left off. But it's been a little while.
Yeah.
I think, what was one of the last things that was crazy? I think we were going every direction, from talking to playing in your major or the club championship to aerification of the greens. And we actually have a topic today that we're going to try and adhere to, but I doubt that'll work.
I'm just looking up on my spreadsheet here. When is the last time you were on the show? Because I know we've milked our last conversation on our social media, but I think it was January of 2023 before.
Yeah.
It was just before the PGA event, the PGA show, which I went to the first time. But a lot of water has gone under the bridge, and a lot of balls are in the water since that last time. And
my good friend, that is a show in itself. You could end it right now, and there is truth in that saying.
Mic drop.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I'm playing with guys who are going, wait, I see a ball in the water. I'm going to go get it. Not now. Do that on your time. This is my time. No, you're on my time. Yeah. Go clean divots on the green, but don't go looking for balls that aren't yours. I'm sorry. Nope. I'm renting. And you're indoors this time. You've been traveling around. I do love to hear a recap of what you've been doing, what you've been working on, who you've been doing it with.
Well, just, time-wise, one of the most recent things that's happened, and it's, as you said, it's hard with a podcast to, talk about, A, there's only so many tour players in the world, and they represent a rather small percentage, and B, those events happened, and, they're already done with Sunday last week, and they're on to this week, but I had the chance to go over and be part of Team USA for the Solheim Cup, and I've done that in the past before, and it is such an honor to be able to go do that, and it's kind of neat, and I've seen so many things that it's one of those, not what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but it's the things in the team room, and the vulnerability and the confidence and the emotions of the, from excitement to nervousness to everything. And as a coach standing there, it's really neat to see that, because you're playing for your country. And, the Solheim Cup is the LPGA equivalent of the Ryder Cup. So
what an honor.
Fred, it's old news, but we went over there, and the young lady that I've had so much pleasure working with for, going on 16 years now, Stacy Lewis, was the captain. And with her background, not only with Julie Inkster kind of taking her under her wing as a player, and showing her, the things that Julie was doing that was working, but her background in school being in accounting, and, and then having KPMG align, not only as her sponsor, but with the LPGA starting to provide all the analytics. They took that stuff to a completely different level that was just crazy. it's more than just playing with your best friend or a person you like out on tour. And it's kind of, it delves so deep. And the only thing I'm going to tell you is this: those girls did something that no team has ever done. And to my knowledge, what we were told was it's something even the guys have never done. They went overseas to the European venue and they beat the Europeans 4-0 in alternate shot right out of the bat, which is the way both contests start. And I kind of, we were in the room kind of between the morning matches and the afternoon matches. And I looked at Stacy and I said, "Come here." And she goes, "What?" I go, "Statistically, that should never have happened." And she goes, "But statistically, it did." So,
It's now a stat.
yeah. And one of the coolest things was, you kind of hear a little bit of this, golf is a field game. Well, there was part of the statistics that literally 4 o'clock in the afternoon the day before said these are the two people that should go off first. But then, as the captain being out there and watching specifically how two players were playing, that's part of the magic and part of the mix is you just don't go play the practice rounds with your best friend. You're rotating these chess pieces all around. And she said, two names keep coming back up as to this player is hitting the ball as good as I've ever seen them hit.
Mm.
And those two names statistically weren't the ones who were going to lead off, but those two players were Lexi Thompson and Megan King. And those were the two that led it off and ended up starting. There was one victory, there was two, there was three, there was four. And, as we know, the final result, it was a victory. We tied them on their soil, but since they have the cup, they hold the cup, and in a great, just the alignment of sportsmanship. Carlota Saganda, who is from Spain, I mean, what could be better? She's on the 17th hole. The King of Spain is up at the green watching this, and she sticks it to 2 feet and makes the putt to
Wow.
tie all the matches. And just, it's one of those things, there's times where you look and you kind of go, and the golf gods have decreed it.
Well, it's interesting because just as you said it, I can see that you had your body action as we look at each other while we're talking, but your body action was kind of had tingles all over your body when you said that you stuck it to 2 feet. Was it that good?
Oh, it was that good. And I videotaped it. I've got literally my phone right just pointing at the flag, and I hear one of the caddies from our side. It was close to the word "darn it," but he knew what happened, and I was like, this is what makes the game so great. This is what makes international competition so great, and just it's a game that brings out the best in people, both in attitudes and in competition. And it's crazy. You see things, and I know that's one of our topics, and I'm not trying to delve right into it, but
No.
you see stuff in match play that you just don't ever see in stroke play. And I got a little list here of things, but one of them, Fred, and I mean,
Huh.
I swear to you, they make more putts in match play than they do in stroke play, and I have no idea how that happens or why it happens at all. If I had an explanation, I will ask Mark Sweeney from Aim Point and see if he knows an answer. But it's you've never, if you and I are going out to play and we go do this and you go, he'll probably walk away with par. Somehow in match play, you go, what is he, about 88 feet away? He's probably going to make this. And that's what happens. You see it over and over and over again. But
Well, why don't we, you just mentioned KPMG, why don't we go and look at the analytics and see if in fact that is true, that it does happen more often in match play. I'm sure that there's numbers there.
I am writing that down in my notebook right here. That is a question.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
or it
Now,
just
I'm
seems
not
like
saying
it.
you're an old school coach, but you've been around a long time. How do you feel about the place of analytics and statistics in coaching a team?
Well, I think what
Golf, let's say specifically golf. I'm not going to know about football or baseball or basketball, but for golf,
I think that's where the art of the coach or the captain really, really That's where it comes out. And I can kind of, gosh, I'm thinking of who was it, like Earl Weaver and Tommy Lasorda in baseball, and those coaches, they did it all by the seat of their man. I'm kind of referred back to that Moneyball where all of this started coming out, and
Yeah, sure.
the good coaches still fought with it and said, my gut's telling me something different. But that's all they had to go on before. Now, when you start looking at players and specifically what you're seeing the best players do, but specifically on a team event like a Ryder Cup or a Solheim Cup, the coach is the one with all the data in the background. And quite frankly, they are not, they know what the data is saying, but they're studying from a coaching standpoint. They're studying, like you just talked about, what is their
Mm.
body language? What have they been practicing on? Can you see that they're struggling in their practice sessions, or are they having a lot of fun? And it's all the intangibles where once all the numbers are neatly organized behind there, if you got a team of 12, now you go, I really want to keep my eye on these three players. And those four over there are operating, they're on autopilot right now, and just as a golfer, for you and I, just keeping very simple items, is for us, just making an informed decision should give you a hair of confidence, it just, I mean, without all the analytics, the old adage is go play golf sometime and have them, play on a
Wow.
Monday when the course is closed and none of the flag sticks are in. Watch how good you play. Watch how you get on the green and you go, well, look at that. The hole's right over here. I'm real close this time. And and all of a sudden you go, you're just playing the game at its base. But I think when the analytics kind of interfere and supersede and confuse players,
Mm.
and they're going, I don't know, I don't feel like I should do that. It's that's when it goes kind of the wrong way. But the numbers are hard to. Here's a tip for your listeners, and you could go across the board with any of these systems that are out there. Okay, from game.
Okay, but hold that thought for a second. We'll get the tip for the listeners, but we need to take a break and we'll be back right after this. Ah, love the cliffhanger. Okay, so I interrupted you. You were about to a tip for listeners. They're sitting on the edge of, well, hopefully they're sitting at a red light waiting for this. But what do you got? Okay, let's talk about that.
Well, it's like you said, I'm an old school pro. I might have forgot what I was going to tell them. I didn't really, but
Thank
of
you.
all the statistics, there's a couple things that really, really stand out, and one of them is you got to go for the par fives, unless you have to cover 240 yards of water. The closer you get your ball to the green in two shots, almost at every play level, Fred, the closer you get the ball to your green, the better score you're going to make. And so many times they try and play it smart and they go, I'm going to hit an iron off the tee and then I'm going to hit an 8 iron over here and then I'll hit my 7 iron onto the green. And all it takes is one of those shots not to be so good, and you have put yourself into a world of trouble. But if you can clobber your driver and clobber your 3-wood and you go, oh no, I'm in the bunker. At the very worst, if it takes you two to get out, you're still putting for a par. So those going for the par fives, not stupidly, but getting the balls close. And the other thing that's crazy is, and you and I have talked about this before, putts outside of 30 feet. Everybody wants to make those 5-footers and the 3-footers. We get that. But if you will practice those putts that are outside 30 feet, and, spoiler alert, 30 feet is not across the green. 30 feet is a whole lot closer than you think it is. And if you can practice those and get those down in 2 putts, on the tour, you're gaining almost a stroke. In your own personal game, you're not giving strokes away, and you can watch other players give strokes away there. And one of the craziest things is, I can't remember, I think it came out from Shot by Shot or Shot Link, whatever the PGA Tour uses, the average distance, now taking all the shots that the pros hit. And boy, those guys are good. No question about it. The average distance of all the shots they hit for last year was like 19.8 feet. So why they're practicing 6-footers and not practicing 20-footers all day long it begs the question of, yeah, you don't want to miss the one you hit close, but if you make one of those 20 footers that you're not making, your life could change overnight. So, what are your
Yeah,
two deals? Go for the par fives and practice the 30-foot putts.
yeah, but those 20-foot, 30-foot putts, even the best putter in the world's not going to make 7 out of 10, is he? Because, it's gravity, it's nature, it's everything that gets in the way. I mean, even if you're the best, really, can you make them all? I mean, I had a round this weekend. I was keeping track for some reason, and I'm using Arcos now, so it really helped. The average distance of my first putt was just over 15 feet. I was blown away, and I had 35 putts. I'm like, because I had 2 3 putts, 3 1 putts, and I'm like, that's not that good. I mean, I was really killing it with my irons, but yuck.
Isn't it crazy when you get back there and look? And I want to say, and I know his record was tied this year, but Stan Utley, who's one of the renowned short
Oh,
game people, he
yep.
and it was tied this year, but he held the record solo for I don't know how long it was for the fewest number of putts on 9 holes, and it was 6.
Wow.
And I've watched him give presentations, and he's so good, and people are like, "Oh my God." And and the funniest part is after his round, he went out and he was practicing on the putting green. And Stan, being
Yeah.
Stan, he's very quiet. And he said someone from the media tent came out and they said, "Stan, we'd like to speak to you in the media tent." And he goes, "For the love of God, why? I played horrible." And then they told him what had happened. And then his question is, a guy who has 6 putts, what do you think he shot on those 9, on that 9? And people start guessing. He goes, "Nope, nope, nope, nope. 35, 1 under par." Because that means I hit the ball 29 times. So putting does help. There's no question about it. But here's the man who holds the record, and he goes, "I couldn't have played much worse." And he chipped one in, he holed one out from the fairway. I think he hit a ball out of bounds on that night. It was just one of those crazy circumstances. So, oh my
Wow.
gosh.
So, we talk about the analytics, we talk about old school guys. I think that the in all of sports, the longer you're around, the more you're going to see that you've never anticipated. But you put it in your memory bank and you go like, okay, that has happened. Now I can deal with it. Now I've recognized it. And I think maybe that's why so much of the old school coaching doesn't love the analytics as much, because it takes that out of the equation. It takes like just the random stuff that happens in all of sports, especially golf, right? Because you're playing on, no 2 fields are alike. No 2 courses are alike in the sense where every basketball court's the same, every football field's the same, every tennis court is the same dimensions, maybe has a different surface.
Right.
But there's so many things you'll see that like, whoop, never saw that one before, but now I have. Right? Analytics, I don't know if analytics puts that into place.
There is.
I don't know.
Do you think, and it's almost like looking at it, and when you look at all the stats and the numbers, I think the thing you would hear is you go, "That's in a 1 in a million occurrence. It's an outlier."
Right.
But I think the old-timey player and the old-timey coach and the old-timey caddy would go, it could be, and I remember, I know it was David Thompson. I know it was a few years back, and I'm almost positive, I think it was at one of the Canadian Open venues. And the old adage is, it's okay if you hit the flag because you're going to be fine. Don't ever hit the flag stick.
Mm.
And and here David Toms hits a flag stick, literally, I mean, 2 feet up from the bottom, as good as you can possibly hit a shot, right? And with that particular flag stick they were using, careens off, goes off the left side of the green down into the water hazard,
Oh my.
and he ends up not winning the tournament. And I mean, it's happened on the LPGA, but it's that old timey caddy that's going to look at you and kind of go, let's just play to the front and see what happens, because that one occurrence. But sometimes you're not living in fear, but
Right.
you're making a decision to go, yeah, believe it or not, I've seen this happen, and let's just play smart.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you say, the announcers will go, "Well, that was a 1 in a million occurrence." That just right. They'll put that out in the air, and yet there's, like you said, a caddy and a coach and an old player standing there going, "Nope, Happened before 1983. It was on a Thursday, 14th hole, right? It was raining. The wind, and it's like,
Yep.
yeah, okay. Okay, those are analytics, I guess.
Yeah, and those things are always outliers. And they go, that doesn't factor into the equation. And you're like, well, it did on that day. I mean, there was
Right.
you just reminded me of something. There was a year that one of the great players who was on the LPGA for so many years, Shen Feng, she's going to go for the par 5 and 2. And the only reason I know this is I know Stacy Lewis was in the lead. Well, she's got to carry it over water a little bit. And I mean, the minute she hits the shot, literally the minute she hits the shot, one of her hands comes off the club. The right hand comes off the club because and you can just see in her body language, she's like, my God, I missed it.
Yeah.
It hits a rock over in the water, careens onto the green. It's going a million miles an hour. It hits the flagstick and it ends up an inch away.
Oh my God. I love it.
But those are the things you're like, the analytics. And you know what? At some point, it's kind of like you hate to be beat or you hate to win. But that's the cool part about this game. You always got a crazy thing done. Oh, that hole in one you made. Was it glorious? And you backed it up, you landed it over the flag? No, it was horrible. I scolded it, landed 40 yards short of the green, ran 100 miles an hour, hit the flag, and went in.
Right.
But
what do they?
You can't put that in the scoreboard.
No, and what do you do with that with analytics? How do they, factor that in? I don't know because I don't know enough. Now, this past summer of 2023, the women's tennis U.S. Open was bragging a lot about, deservedly so, about the equity in pay for the U.S. Open for women's tennis, men's tennis.
Right.
Here now you're talking about the Solheim Cup and how the U.S. dominated, but the headlines were more about what was going on with the men and what a travesty it was. Is there going to be equity in men's and women's golf on the professional level as far as our attention?
I would say this in the last 4 to 5 years, and I would say that Michael Wan, who was the commissioner of the LPGA, and then went over to the USGA, he really pushed that forward. And the is there an equity in pay in some tournaments, the women's U.S. Open and the men's U.S. Open? I mean, you look what the U.S. Women's Open paid. I think it was the one back in Pine Needles. Was it 1.8 million or 2.3 million went to first prize? And I know it's more than that for the men, but the one thing that's happened, and I think if you talk to a lot of the players on the LPGA, the speed at which things are exponentially, the prize monies are exponentially growing. The speed at which that's happened over the last 36 to 48 months is a real welcome sight to see, and has been, and something that it not only does it say they're on the right path, but it also says, you know what, it's kind of like it's not going up 10% a year. It's all of a sudden these new sponsors are coming in, and these major corporations, and they look at equity in the workplace and they're going, we're going to do this if we can have equity in our competition on the LPGA tour compared to the men's tour. And it's helped a lot, but I don't know if that makes sense. But the increase in purse money and the increase in, there's always kind of that one number and that one line, and I don't live on that, but I know because I taught a young lady who finished 100th on the money list one year. And for so many years, I've been out there 17 years almost now, but for so many years, you could just kind of go around that 99th to 100 spot. It was kind of like, you got to make somewhere between 68 and $80,000. But it was always that number, year after year after year after year. And that, folks, I'm not, I know how these ladies and these caddies, and I know how I travel. That's barely going to get you by, but it gives you your I'm working next year card. But all of a sudden, over the last however many years, and I probably should Google it during our next break, but I mean, that 80,000 number started jumping up, and it went from 80 to 100, it went from 100 to 120, it went from 120 to 140. And this year it's probably going to be, somewhere if I had to guess right now, somewhere in the $180,000 range, just, maybe close to 200,000, which if you're finishing in the last exempt spot, you've made enough money to live and put some money in the bank and pay your bills. But the cost of staying out there, and anybody who's listening in this day and age, air travel ain't cheap. And and it's, I mean, what used to run 68 to $70,000 is closer to 90 for the ladies, and or for those players that are touring, and that would provide to the Corn Ferry Tour, provide all these things. So just being able to play well enough to be qualified for your job and not have to go back to your golf course and go, all right, does anybody want to do the sponsorship thing again this year? It's kind of cool your first year out, but you're like, well, this is your fourth year on tour. Why aren't you? Well, yeah. So that was a good question. And I'm really a non-confrontational kind of guy, but I love the path that, at least in golf, the speed at the path that they're going on, and it's helped.
Good. Good. All right. I'm not going to make you go do that research, but we're going to take a break right now. So you get to be inside the ropes on a lot of LPGA events. What's the buzz inside the ropes about LIV? And do women feel slighted that they were approached to create a tour like this? Or, thinking about, a lot of people think about the politics. There's no way the Saudis are going to go, yeah, let's promote women being out in front, or am I just imagining stuff right now?
Fred, I'm going to give you the best answer you're ever going to get to that question. Who says that the ladies were not approached by LIV?
I don't know.
And there's the answer to your question. So,
wow.
I mean, yes, I do get to hear a lot about that. And I don't hear enough of it to really render an informed opinion, but the players have been approached in the past.
Good. Okay.
And it's the one thing that I know that the LPGA even looks at, and when we go and we play the Solheim Cup, so many of the players that aren't playing our tour are overseas, and they're playing the LET, the Ladies European Tour, which really, amongst other things, does need a shot in the arm. And at some further point down the road, maybe kind of like, it becomes a structure more like the PGA, where we have the sponsorships, and the LET has fought so hard for everything that they have. And is it, aside from the Solheim Cup, is it good to combine forces and go, wow, we could be a much stronger entity if we were all together? And some players would play on this tour and some would play on that tour, and there'd be qualifications on both. So yes, but there is talk in it, and you hear every comment in there. It's kind of like, boy, that used to be my favorite player, but I really don't think too much of him since he went to LIV, and,
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of that.
I think, Fred, you might call it an undercurrent, but knowing that the pressure that has been put on the men's tour, knowing that could come over to the ladies tour, has propelled them. And the new commissioner, Molly, who's just, she is consistently out working with future sponsors and more sponsors. And how do we get this so that if that situation comes, it's not like, oh, I've been struggling out of it for years, I'll hop over there. If that situation were to come up, you go, man, I've been part of this train going along called the LPGA, and it's really grown, and I've been part of that, and I helped make it. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's almost like that apples, oranges, and you're like, that's steak over there, by the way, just in case. We're in the produce section, and those people in the steak section, the meat market, are kind of signing up for a bigger paycheck. But who knows?
Okay. All right. Enough politics. Let's go to the topic that we thought would be a fun one to discuss for this episode, and that would be match play practice to enhance your stroke play success. I love that idea.
Yeah, here, and it's kind of, Fred, and I'll give you credit. We were talking off air, and it's kind of, it's a precursor to something that may be popping out in some other areas here in terms of information or whatnot. And, Fred, with a smile on my face, Fred's like, come up with something. We just can't yammer for an hour here. We got to,
But we managed
but
to.
there, yeah. And it's just one of those things where you kind of sit there and go, okay, it's two different forms of golf. And yes, when we go play the European, they were brought up and they were always playing match play. So are they better at it? Have they played more alternate shot? Have they done all these things? And all of a sudden, it's kind of like you see these incredible shots, and we talk about, it seems like they make more putts in match play, and how do they pull these things off? And, you know, Coach me on the other side of it is like, I wonder if there was a way you could sort of practice that way. And then when it came time for stroke play, these things actually do show up instead of just going out and following the old, Coach McGillicuddy adage, you just need to hit more golf balls, and but I mean, one of them that I wrote down is, and it's one of the most obvious ones, it's the mindset that you take into match play, because it is literally hole by hole instead of one big challenge. And Fred, I know this has never happened to you, but it's happened to me, and potentially it might have happened to one of your listeners. Let's say you start off a little less than stellar, and your first hole is a complete catastrophe.
Hmm.
In match play, who cares? I'm one down.
Great.
I got 17 more chances to even this thing up, and it could be a crazy thing that happened. You might have hit the flagstick, you might have, who knows, you got stung by a bee standing on the tee, whatever it is. But there is that mindset. And I kind of, make it equivocal to, you either see old man par each and every hole when you're out there, and you're going to look at old man par, or it's kind of the ghost of old man par following you around in stroke play, and he's in your ear going, well, you're 3 over now, and there's only 6 holes left. You realize you have to birdie half of those, and it's kind of like, or you just meet old man par at the tee every time, and you go, hey, good to see you again. I missed you the last hole, and
can I buy you a beer?
exactly. And, and again, you're playing in match play, you're playing one person, and you're not playing the entire field. And in real life, that one person is old man par. And if you can kind of have that mindset a little bit, because even when you start out and you start out good, man, just 18 holes it's an insurmountable task. You put it into bite-sized pieces, 6 little 3-hole tournaments, and then somewhere about on the 4th of the 6 3-hole tournaments, you're going, I got to take my kid to soccer here in an hour. Can we hurry up a little bit? So all those things that kind of come in, but just having that mindset, and boy, easy to talk about, harder to do, but how are you going to do it? Go out with your buddies and just have a fun match play event one Saturday or one Friday. Just throw that in there every once in a while. The next thing on there is strategy, which becomes kind of interesting. And the par threes in match play are vitally important at the highest level, because the assumption is on the par fives, the ladies on the LPGA, the men on the PGA, come on. You ain't going to win a par 5 with a birdie, but everybody's going to make birdie on a par 5. Now, that's a blanket statement. That's not true, but those are the givens. It's not like you're going to sneak in and make a birdie on the par 5. But the par threes, that's where you can really separate yourself, and knowing which par threes are the ones that you should maybe be a little more aggressive on. And it doesn't have to be the shortest hole. The postage stamp hole at Troon it's ridiculously short, but look, if your wedge game isn't good, that's not the one you need to be going at. If you are better with a 7-iron, you might be better off really kind of putting the pedal to the metal on the 155-yard hole and just trying to. So there's a strategy to know, maybe you're great with your hybrid and you're playing a 220-yard par 3, and you go, I love this hole. I get to hit my favorite club. So the par threes are important, but just because they're short doesn't mean that's the one you should go after. So before you tee off, you kind of look at it and go, okay. And everybody's there and they're looking at that and go, ooh, the hole location's right in the middle of the green. That's a good one for me to go to. But those holes are very, very important. They really, really are. I put down here because it's one of those things that anytime the PGA Tour or LPGA Tour players go overseas, sometimes I think they would rather well, I know they would rather have their golf clubs show up than their regular clothes. And sometimes their golf clubs don't show up. And literally, when I was standing in the airport and I looked over and I thought, well, there's Danielle Kang's set of clubs. And I knew that they had taken about 2 days to get there. And I texted and said, hey, I'm driving in from the airport. I see your clubs at the Lufthansa office right now. Do you want me to bring them with me? If so, call. But knowing that those players, when they go over there, are also kind of bringing their horses for courses. They're bringing a few extra pieces of equipment to know, are the greens elevated? What kind of bounce are they going to use on the wedge? And all these things. And is the rough longer? It's all that stuff. Again, going back to the par threes. Do I want to try and hit a long iron, or do I want to bring it in a little higher? So knowing, Fred, if we're going to go play Pinehurst, which is, a Donald Ross gem, but all the greens they're like upside down teacups, right? I mean, you're going to have to figure out. So if you're going there, and the course you normally play is nice and plush around the green and relatively flat, you better bring a couple other clubs, because the one you're used to using is not going to work at Pinehurst. So having the right equipment and, not going, well, this is what the pros do. Maybe it's an old rickety putter you have, and it's a chipper or a ping chippo from 1974. Whatever it is, it's something to go, oh, I can use this and it's going to help me. So having the right equipment for the courses.
All right, let's take one.
Let me see some of my
You look down your list and figure that out. We're going to take one more break, and we'll be back. This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans is a fascinating conversation with a returning guest, golf course architect Jeffrey Brauer, discussing what are the contributing factors that influence the design of a golf course, including landscapes, the owner-developer's needs, player strategy, and if it's relevant, the theme. It was quite relevant for this conversation because we discuss his design of the only NFL-themed golf course in the country, the Cowboys Golf Course in Dallas, Texas.
Through contacts, somebody knew Jerry Jones, and he expressed interest in becoming a partner in the golf course and doing an NFL-themed golf course. In Dallas, Texas, we have all 100 courses here. We've had all the signature designers and whatnot, and probably there's no better theme or brand in Dallas and maybe a lot of other places than the Dallas Cowboys.
That's episode 235 of Golf Smarter Mulligans, featuring golf course architect Jeffrey Brauer, being featured on our podcast offspring, Golf Smarter Mulligans, being released this Friday morning. So if you're getting valuable insights or are entertained by what we present here each week, then don't miss the chance to get 2 episodes every week with Golf Smarter and Golf Smarter Mulligans, episodes from our archives that revisit the best of Golf Smarter that can't be found on any other platform. They're both available for free from wherever you're listening right now. All right, what else you got on that list there to help us figure out how we can improve our stroke play just by having a match play mentality or even playing match play?
Yeah, there's a couple more, and it's kind of thinking, is distance the most important, or is direction the most important off of the tee? And I will tell you, from not only being in the coaching room and being on the side watching players, there's a lot to being the first person to hit the green. When you and I are out playing match play, I might be, Fred, I'm going to really boost your ego up. I might be 50 yards behind you. And I hit mine pretty good at 265. So we'll just go there. But the first person to hit the green, and I mean, if I hit the green, great. But if I happen to hit a close shot, now that other person is going, okay, maybe I need to take something into account here. So, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the first person to hit the green has a little bit of a psychological edge. And does that mean you have to hit it so long and bomb it by the playing partner, or do you have to out hit your normal distance? No. You need to have a spot where you can get the ball and hit it on the green. And like that, is it important to hit the ball close to the hole? Well, that's nice. But I got to tell you something. The first person to make the putt and the first person to putt might have a little bit of an advantage, and that's what I see a ton of in match play is these bombs that the players keep making because there's this kind of underlying thing that's Fred, if you and I are playing and I'm 30 feet away and you're 5 feet away, somewhere behind my actions and I'm aim pointing and I've got my speed dialed in and it's about 5 feet from the hole, I'm not going to say anything, but at some point in my mind, it's going to go, this is really going to ruin Fred's day. But there's,
The competitive nature comes out.
yeah, and it's, in a fun way, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't see that coming. So whoever the closer person is kind of going, all right, let's double check. Let's make sure I read it right. Let's get to practice swings. And all of a sudden, what was a natural flow now becomes, you know, you have 2 minutes left in the test and you have 12 questions to answer on your SAT and you're trying like heck to make sure you get them right. And then kind of looking at, what is the practice that you would need for going to a match play event? And, really there's a couple of things. One of them is the conditions. You have to bring the right equipment if you can, but sometimes it's about learning a little different technique. Hey, I'm going to put my hand up and go see your PGA professional and have him show you if you're like, how do you hit that bump and run? This is what I've always done. And he might show you 3 different ways. And all of a sudden now you've got something when you go and you play your member guest or your friend's member guest, you're prepared when you get out there. And then playing some games with pressure or practicing some things with pressure and accepting the outcome. I think it was Molinari the year he won the British Open. I think he had like a 15-footer and he drained it. And, he wasn't being egotistical, but he told the story of every time he went and practiced putting, he literally would finish off with one 15-foot putt. And his deal was, this is to win the Open. And there was no, oh, try it again. He either made it or he missed. And that's when he left the course. And he didn't just keep going until he made it. He learned how to handle that and make that pressure. And then, the other thing is just kind of your use of time and the time it takes to get things done on the course and being able to amp yourself up. And more importantly, when you go play, slow yourself down, because that's, Lee Trevino was one heck of a golfer, but if there was a guy who was a gamer, Trevino was it. And boy, could he speed up a match or slow down a match depending on what he saw his opponent doing. And while you don't have that, you do have it in stroke play. When you start playing good, everything's amped up and you're like, you don't want to take the joy away, but you kind of go, okay, just, operate at a better speed. And when things aren't going good, you're amped up again and you're kind of going, God, I wish this day would get over faster. And you take a little bit of those match play things, just some of the simple ones. Where's your mind? What's your strategy? What equipment do you use? What could you do in practice, playing the golf hole or playing the par threes on the practice range? You do those things, you might surprise yourself next time you step out there. And if you're not playing good enough, you simply look at your playing partners at the turn and you say, what do we say we play match play the back nine? Because I'm really hating this game right now.
Do you think there's more gamesmanship going on in match play?
Yes. And I
Wow.
want to say,
Wow,
that there is, and it's kind of like, it's calling for a ruling and, and it's kind of like, I mean, it's not, but there's all the little things about who's further away. And, the caddies are like, well, I got 151. And the other caddy goes, I got 151. You're 4 yards behind us. Yeah, but the green is at such an angle that we're literally the same. And, all of a sudden that can help reset a player half the time. If you're amped up or your energy, your excitement is kind of going, there's all kinds of little things, where, you make the putt. I'm the first one to putt. I make the putt and I quietly go put my putter in my bag and I walk right off the green. And, I don't see too much of that. I probably see it more in the college levels when they get to the year end at the NCAAs and they're kind of, because they've learned all the tricks from, their pros who were the younger generation. And it's going, you know what? If you're in a tough situation, step back off the ball and throw that grass up in the air. And, the other player is looking at you going, there hasn't been a breath of wind in 45 minutes here. What is this guy doing? But all of a sudden, you've got him kind of off of his mindset, and there you go. This is horrible. It's like
Who
I'm
is the
giving you ways
best?
to cheat legally.
Yeah, well, then it's not cheating. Then it's taking advantage of the situation. So who is the best that you ever saw at that kind of gamesmanship of like knowing that they were being watched by the opponent and wanting to get in their head?
And with the utmost respect, they always said that Ballesteros was one of the greatest at orchestrating, you know, what was going to happen in the match. And, I mean, there'd be times that, I mean, his ball is not plugged, but he thinks the ball is plugged, and yet the thing is sitting on top of the grass. He was always one for calling for rulings. And I remember years and years ago, and it was either at the Masters or at a Ryder Cup. Ken Green literally stood there while the rules official came over. And it was like, you're not pulling this stuff on me, buddy. And but knowing, and just look, it's a whole by whole experience, and knowing how to bring that second man on your team, which is nervousness, it's time, it's rhythm, it's kind of things to either help you or to kind of throw your opponent off a little bit. I'll tell you something funny, and this is not a match play thing, but this is how golfers are. Years and years ago, Tom Kite, Brad Faxon, and I forgot who the other person who was involved in this was, but they were doing an apparel wear with Dr. Bob Rotella, and certain colors, and certain patterns, red for confidence and blue for calmness. And Faxon went to Furman, and I remember we played a practice round somewhere when he was off tour, and on the back of his putter, he had taken some of the tape that the players wrap around their finger, just the white adhesive tape. And it had a little kind of part of it was colored in with a black Sharpie, and it was white in the middle, and it was blue on the other side. And I said, "Oh, Fax, I know you got all this stuff going. What's that tape for?" And he goes, "That's kind of hard to explain." And I said, "No, I know you guys got this and reds for that." And I go, does it help you with it?" I must have asked him questions on that for 4 holes. And then finally he looked at me and goes, "Joe, it means nothing, but you haven't been thinking about your game for the last 4 holes. All you're doing is asking me about this piece of tape on my putter." And he goes, "And guys on tour are doing the same thing."
Wow. Whoa, that's the greatest story. That is
Isn't it incredible? Because everybody knew what a great putter Faxon was. And if, he's like, "What does that tape do? What does that tape do? Do I need the tape? Because Faxon's one of the best putters I've ever seen. What is it? Does it help the ball roll better? Does it give you confidence? Does it keep you cross-eyed?" They're trying to figure out a million things. And he's just, I just colored it in and put it on the back of my putter. He goes, "And all you've worried about is that piece of tape for the last 4 holes." I was like, "Oh man, did I ever?" There's a life lesson
you
for
got
you.
sucked in, and who wouldn't? Oh my God, that is so good. What do you got coming up this winter? What do you, I mean, you're in Florida, right? So
Well,
it's golf.
I will be heading out again this winter towards PGA West for a few months, and as we
Where
are,
we did your last interview because you were outdoors. Now you were
yes,
in
and
the cave now.
we have so much going on at our course at Legends. We just redid the range and resodded everything. The Vanderbilt golf team bases out of there, and they are building a clubhouse next to their team clubhouse, which is the same size as their clubhouse, and it's awesome. So that is currently, we're done with the range. We're rebuilding. They're adding on to the team house, and in about 10 days, we are renovating our clubhouse. So, I mean, I feel like I should go by Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a yellow hard hat and go, "Anyone that wants to come out for a lesson, come on, let's go."
And what should we be thinking about this winter?
Oh man, it's do you put down your New Year's resolution tips, or do you literally, I would tell you this much, just get an index card or put it on a quick little note on your iPhone or iPad, and I forget I think it was the Cubs manager who they're saying was, don't suck. It's like, figure out what you're the worst at. And in the old adage, just maybe it's a new piece of equipment, maybe it's a different way to practice, maybe it's taking a lesson. Don't suck. If you got one part of your game that, oh, I'm great at everything except bunkers. Well, when you're going to play your best golf? When you don't hit a bunker. But I'm going to tell you that ain't going to happen all too often. And, maybe it's fairway bunkers. Find that one area of your game and be real honest with yourself and commit a little bit of attention to it. Because as Harvey Penick once said, every part of this game is related to everything. If you have a good grip in putting, you're probably going to have a good grip in chipping. So anything you would learn with a new technique is going to carry over into another part of your game, and then the catastrophe is sort of avoided.
Awesome. Joe, as always, you're just so much fun to have on because we just don't know where it's going to go, and it always ends at the pot of the end of the rainbow. Thank you so much for coming back on.
Fred, I look forward to the next time, and as always, thanks for making this fun.
And if I didn't mention it already, and this is the first time you've heard one of our conversations with Joe Hallett, he's a PGA Master Professional, which means he's the instructor that teaches PGA instructors. And if he's having this much fun doing that, why aren't we having more fun on the golf course too? Speaking of frustration, I had one of those rounds last weekend where my confidence was high, was scoring well, having a great time, only 6 over after 12 holes. Then what seemed to be out of nowhere, I fell into a double bogey funk over 4 of the next 5 holes. That's not where my game is these days, but that's golf, right? I was striking the ball well, but my short game just disappeared, reminding me who is the boss? The golf course. But thanks to all the insights that I've learned from our great instructors, I didn't lose my cool. I stayed with my pre-shot routine, kept drinking water, and played on. Luckily, par number 18, a great finishing hole with water all the way down the right side leading up to the edge of the green. But still, it's a hole that always introduces doubt to everyone who's ever played it. The highlight of the day was running into a Golf Smarter listener and upcoming ambassador, David Lamb, who recognized my voice in the parking lot. That was a first for me. Well, we had a great visit, and hopefully we'll be playing together in the near future. Now, this week's ambassador, Sergio Lelevier, gets a special shout out for 2 reasons. One, Sergio's 75 years young and he's still playing golf. And he's listening to podcasts. And, did I say 2? I meant 3 reasons. He's our 100th ambassador to introduce an episode. Sergio is from Sierra Madre, California, and because he followed our simple instructions on how to record his episode opening that took less than a minute, he received a private link to Tony Manzoni's video, The Lost Fundamental. As of right now, we've got enough listeners sharing where they're from and where they play for the next 20 weeks, but I'd still like to hear from you too. And when you become a Golf Smarter ambassador, you'll have a choice of a free gift. Check out today's show notes to see more and links about each gift you have to choose from, whether it's Tony's video, a box of Odin X1 balls with the Golf Smarter logo, or a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com. Now, to see and hear the highlights of our podcast interviews, please follow us at Golf Smarter on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X, formerly known as Twitter, for our ongoing posts of videos and articles 5 times each week. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions for upcoming episodes, or want to join our list of Golf Smarter ambassadors who've received a free gift, write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.